Let's Talk with Kay. Good evening, good afternoon, grand rising, wherever you are, good night. Thank you for watching me at this time. I'm on my way to run, and I thought about a topic. I ain't gonna say I just thought about it now, but I remember it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna let it, let it out there. It's going to be a little bit personal, but I do believe that it can apply to a lot of people. If you don't know, if this is your first video that you're watching of mine, first of all, welcome. And I like to mention that I am a spiritualist. I'm not religious. I'm going to say that again. I'm a spiritualist. I'm not religious. So, I don't believe in Christianity. I don't believe in being in Islam or being a Muslim, if I'm saying that right, or Judaism or any other religion. I'm spiritualist. I'm gonna get that out the way in the beginning. And I hear a few spiritualists mention that counseling, therapy is not necessary at all. Some even talk against it. Me, on the other hand, I will say therapy is not wrong. Therapy is not inherently wrong. If it's something that will help somebody, I am not going to discourage it. Because think about it. Everybody that's watching YouTube or whatever, or you just living real life, everybody doesn't go into spirituality one way. In my opinion, I feel like therapy can be a cheat sheet into spirituality. What do I mean by that? A lot of things that, let me tell you a little bit personal story about me. Honestly, being from a toxic family, I believe that I've been depressed for a while. I probably experienced depression when I was a teenager, and but because nobody really didn't talk about therapy or anything like that, like out in the open in family groups or whatever like that, it was kind of a taboo topic. So think about it. If you a person that hasn't discussed spirituality, you could have grown up as an atheist, Christian, or whatever type of belief. You're probably in deep in the matrix. You're not really open-minded, or you're not. Point is, most people are not going to be either drawn directly by spirit and hey, I don't know how, I can't say how spirit will work. But my point I'm trying to make is it can be a cheat sheet, because I will say, after my marriage to my narcissistic ex, I started going through therapy because I was really depressed and things of that nature. And before I mention anything else, was it a straight shot? Was it linear? No, it wasn't. My journey had ebbs and flows, curves, sidewinds, or whatever, till I finally was able to make it to the place that I was at. And I feel like if it wasn't for therapy, who knows, I probably still would be in the matrix. I probably still would be questioning all the time, what is my purpose? Is there a such thing as God? Who is God? Because I always had questions and things about whether spirituality, does it line up with science and all this, which I'm finding out today, yes, spirituality is aligned with a lot of with a lot of information that's, coming from science, coming from math, coming from, even from, believe it or not, psychology. So I believe that, in a sense, therapy was kind of like my, how should I put it? I guess my red pill or whatever into starting my spiritual journey. And I eventually had like a spiritual awakening I would say about 2 years ago. So I would say, how, like, the question is, how does therapy lead someone into spirituality? First of all, I'm not saying it's 100% foolproof way, but if a person who's like fully into the matrix, they depressed, they probably experienced a lot of trauma, they obviously not healed. When they go to therapy, guess what? A lot of things in therapy, in counseling, they teach you the same things that spirituality or spiritualists encourage. For example, meditation. Meditation is a big thing in the spiritual community, because meditation, first of all, it calms you. If you're really stressed or anxious in a moment, it keeps you grounded. And with that being said, I believe it opens you to your higher self. So when you do meditate, that will be like a perk that you finally starting to get guidance from your higher self, guidance from your spirit guides, from your ancestors, whoever, that's beneficial, giving you beneficial information to lead your life in a positive direction. And also, therapy teaches you boundaries and self-love, because coming from a toxic home or dealing with abusive relationships, narcissism, or all of the above, you pretty much didn't learn, or let alone uphold boundaries. You didn't know what boundaries were, if it slapped you in the face. So in therapy, a lot of things that you didn't learn growing up, and it kind of caused you to be open to a lot of abuse and bullying and things of that nature. A therapist that's worth their salt would teach you that, teach you about boundaries. Because me personally, I thought, it probably sounds silly, but I thought boundaries were like being mean. Because growing up, it was like everything was fluid in a sense. Nobody taught you boundaries. I didn't learn anything about boundaries. I wasn't really taught to be like, question. Like, for example, questioning adults was a bad thing to do. You don't get into grown folks' business type of thing. Yeah, and a lot of times your parents, basically stepped over boundaries, the things that they should have taught you. Because unfortunately for me, when I was growing up, I trusted my mom to hold money for me. And mind you, this was like the 1990s and all this type of stuff. We didn't have Google, or we didn't have social media that we can able to talk to so many different people, back and forth and all this type of stuff. It was kind of like in our little bubbles, separate bubbles, separate family unit bubbles. So, so basically she stole my money. I worked hard over the summer, saved money in her bank account, and towards the end, when I was ready to buy school clothes, buy school supplies and things like that, she's like, oopsies, I'm sorry, I just used your money to pay for, I don't even think she apologized. She was like, I just used your money to. So, and that just really, and then think about that. The person you're supposed to trust, braced their trust, and basically stepped over boundaries that you're supposed to have, and they supposed to teach you. How in the world you're going to be able to grow up and enable the boundaries. You're not going to give, or you're not going to set anything that you don't know about. You don't know about boundaries. It's like, what is boundaries? It's non-existent. It doesn't exist. So you can't teach somebody something from your mind that doesn't exist, or you can't enact any boundaries that doesn't exist in your conscious or anything. So, because a lot of people, some people, I would say a lot of people, more people than people really want to think, come from abusive homes, unfortunately. And it's really sad. And yeah, so I believe therapy, going to counseling, going to therapy, teaches you those things. And once you start practicing it, boundaries, you're going to realize, first of all, you'll be more comfortable saying no. And it's like a muscle that gets stronger and stronger with practice, because you're able to easily discern, and not even easily, you're not just going to easily discern whether somebody is stepping over your boundaries. You'll be able to practice and set certain type of boundaries that's not going to be easily crossed, because now you develop self-love, because having boundaries is a form of self-love that I don't think is being taught, well, at least in my church and a few other churches growing up, and probably other types of churches and religions. They don't really teach you this. I feel like having boundaries is the antithesis to religion, because it's like, for example, when I was a Christian, I was I'm not going to lie, I had my foot one in the door and one in out the door, because I didn't want to be a part of forced friendships, because I like to have organic type of friendships being made, not feeling like I'm having handlers, like you are voluntold to have friends and this in this circle, or what they call it, in this I can't think of it, not mission, but anyways, they have like different groups in church or whatever religion you are part of, and I don't want to feel like I have to be a part of that group. I don't know these people. I have to see them every week. I'm like, it's kind of like what we call in Hollywood or whatever, like you got handlers. And because good and well, if you don't show up to a meeting or whatever after going consistently, or you did something supposedly wrong or committed this sin, people are going to talk, people going to judge you, people going to do this and do that. And I feel like that's not how it's supposed to be, and it's like no boundaries. And then I saw it, growing up with my parents, who eventually divorced, because it's like my dad wasn't like the man of the house. It was more of the pastor. What the pastor said was law, and the end. So I feel like many pastors and other leaders don't even respect boundaries. I mean, a good example of that is if you talk to a pastor or whoever type of leader, then you might hear them talk about it in a sermon, on Sunday. You're like, wait a minute, that sounds familiar. That sounds like something that I talked about. And good and well, people sense in the audience that, oh my God, these notifications. People sense in the audience that, oh, pastor must got some tea, that they must have, somebody must have told him something personally, or they must have heard something through the grapevine, and now they using it as a sermon. Or the pastor might have just heard something indirectly that they don't like, whether it's true or false, right or wrong, and they sitting here being passive aggressive and talking about it. And another example of not having boundaries is, a pastor telling the ushers to lock the doors because he need a certain amount of money. My thing is, as a spiritualist, I'm not going to go out begging people for money. If I feel like I need a certain amount of money, I'm going to rely on my higher self. I'm going to rely on, like people say, universe or God. Don't necessarily mean the God of your religious text. to be able to lead me to getting whatever service or thing that I need. Should religious leaders be the same way too? I'm like, you're not gonna be locking me up in no I'm about to start cussing. You're not gonna lock me up in no church, because I'm gonna be that one who's gonna be like, wait a minute, that's like overstepping my boundaries, because you don't know what I have to have. You don't know what I need to do that evening. I might have to visit somebody that's sick and dying in a hospital or something, and they got certain visiting hours on a Sunday, and I'm like, dude, you know what? Usher, please respectfully unlock this door, because this man is not my daddy. He's not my uncle. He's not my employer that's going to be paying me on Friday. So if you don't unlock this door, I will be calling 911 and let them know they basically holding me hostage, because you can't force whatever out of me that I did not plan to give. That's my take on that. I know you probably heard about that. It's been going around for probably months or whatever, about, I guess his name Marvin Sapp, that singer. I guess he turned pastor. I'm like, and he's not the only one. A lot of times people blame the mega churches, and I'm like, it's not just the mega churches. A lot of this happens in smaller, regular churches. But anyways, I kind of went off topic, but I believe that having boundaries is very important in spirituality, because in a sense, if you don't have any boundaries, you're not really honoring yourself. And when I first learned this from from a counselor, I didn't get it at first. Excuse me. I thought it was just being mean, or because it was just something that just seemed so foreign to me. But now that I have more self-love for self and all that type of stuff, then I basically understand that you're basically not honoring yourself. You're not honoring yourself. And like, for example, somebody asks you to do something, and it could be a good thing, like, oh, can you help me volunteer at an animal shelter or something? We really understaffed. That's just an example I come up with. You love animals and all that type of stuff too. You can do it any day, but this particular day, maybe you just need a reset. You need to just take a moment to yourself, because you've probably been overwhelmed at work, your own business, or something like that. And to me, if you force yourself to do it, you're not really honoring yourself. You're not honoring that person, because you're really not doing it out of care. You're doing it out of obligation. And then when you put yourself in that person's foot, imagine doing something like that all the time, and that person, would you want to make somebody feel obligated? You know what I'm saying? So that's not going to even make you feel good as the person even asking for the help. At least me, a normal, healthy person. I'd rather for that person to be like, you know what? I'm sorry, I can't make it this Saturday or whatever day they ask, because I've been so overwhelmed with work or anything like that. You don't have to explain too much. If you really trust and honor that person, you can explain as much as you want to, but you can just say, you know what, Saturday is really not a great time. I apologize, but it may be another day I can probably help. So can you reach out to me like later on, during the week, and maybe the following week I can help. I'd rather for a person to come at me like that. I'll honor it, okay, because I'm the type of person that respect boundaries. Not only do I have boundaries, I respect boundaries as well. So I'd be like, okay, I understand that, that's life be life, and sometimes. So and leave it at that, and I'll find somebody else, and I don't want nobody to feel like they obligated, because you can sense that, like, oh my goodness, they put on a fake smile or whatever. If you can read energy like me, you can read this person really don't want to be here, or they feel obligated. Then you don't feel that great, because you've got somebody out of their time. That's why they say it's not really good to people please, because it's basically people pleasing is basically you don't have no boundaries, you don't honor yourself, and eventually you really don't love yourself like you think you do. because once you really have that self-love intact and things like that, sometimes people think you look bitch, and you're really not being a bitch. You just know that, hey, I'm not easily bendable. I'm not easily shakeable. You know what I'm saying? You can't easily get something out of me. Not saying I'm being stingy or anything like that, but a person cannot easily take advantage of me. And that's what I'm really trying to say. So, and so besides boundaries and eventually self-love, you're gonna learn your emotional intelligence can increase, and so on and so forth. You have a lot of benefits. Okay, I just came back from my run. Forgot to mention one thing that I feel like counseling would help a whole lot. I thought about it during my run. Please forgive me, I'm a little bit tired. Probably gotta take my glasses off. One thing I remember during my run that I forgot to mention is, if this is what I remember, excuse me, in counseling, one of the things, at least in my experience, that was taught to me was the fact that excuse me, learning how to communicate, really expressing yourself, and it will teach you, I guess, about emotional intelligence and things of that nature. Learning how to not only really get a chance to really kind of, I guess, kind of get in tune with your emotions and really know how to express them. And with that being said, I guess it will help you be more in tune with the environment. Is that make any sense? Be more in tune with the environment, and in tune with others, and really know how to read. If you didn't learn how to do it, or just didn't really trust your intuition, once you get more practice into it, you'll really, because you really have to understand more. You really have to understand yourself before you really master understanding anybody else, in my opinion. Because a lot of times what people do is project their emotions, whether it's consciously or most times probably unconsciously or subconsciously. They'll project their emotions, their insecurities, and all that stuff onto you. Sometimes if you're not really healed or whatever, or you have your moments, you can do the same thing to others. And also when it comes to self-love and things like that, you will, and that's some of the things that you will learn, in counseling, or at least I did, and you really have to practice a lot of this stuff. People can tell you to do these things, but if you don't practice it, it don't mean nothing. It's just going in one ear and out the other. You just know all these tools, but you really don't know if it works for you or not unless you really practice it. And once you start practicing these things, you can be well in tune. And I know in my experience, I think this is what I wanted to mention, which I've forgotten, was that and I would say this was a major part in my spiritual awakening, because in this world there are a lot of toxic people in this world, and the more you live, the more the toxic it becomes. And this is, people gotta realize this is spiritual warfare that we're in. And people say the powers that be, the higher ups, higher echelons or whatever, forces seen and unseen, will try to use many different tactics to manipulate you, whether it's in media, whether it's in politics, what else, entertainment. It's like an ongoing daily battle. And one thing you have to really learn is to be alone. Sometimes you will have a season of being alone, because it's more and more people and things are become more toxic. And maybe this is a common thing, maybe it's not, but you're gonna experience a time that you will be alone. And that's when spirit, your higher self, can really talk to you. And I feel like if you're the type of person that really don't like being alone, you have to be constantly involved with different people, or you have to be on the phone. You always have to have that energy. In my opinion, you may need to do some more healing and things of that nature, because what better company you will have is with yourself. If you don't know how to if you don't really know how to enjoy your own company, to be in peace with whatever environment that you're in, even if it's just being alone, you might need to do some shadow work and things like that. I think that's what I wanted to mention. I mean, typically I have like paper or something, write notes, but obviously I'm running, so, and I was like, dang, I forgot to mention that. I want to try to cover everything: boundaries, breathing, meditation. I'm trying to go back and think about some of the things that that I learned, learning about emotional intelligence, trusting yourself. A lot of these things you have to master self in order to be able to make wise decisions, to decide who can be in your life, whether associate, friend, or intimate relationship partner, things of that nature. So I think that's what I wanted to talk about. So I'm just gonna go move forward. This interruption of this conversation, and yeah, I would like to mention that I did run, I think, barely under 40 minutes. So I did pretty good. I had to stop because my sides started hurting. I'm like, dang, my sides started hurting. Hey, Clyde, drink some water. I'm doing a terrible job these past couple of days drinking water. But yeah, so moving forward. And just like relationships, the first counselor you see may not be that perfect counselor. I had some counselors, different counselors, maybe through, moving, or just different reasons. Or a counselor didn't work at that office anymore. They working somewhere else now. Insurance changes, so on and so forth. So there are many reasons you will change counselors, but just like relationships, you may go to that one counselor and like, I'm not really feeling it, and go to somebody else until the point you'll click. Because I had my share of great, excellent counselors that was like, were phenomenal. I'm like, wow. And you had some that's like, dude, why you look on your phone? Dude, like, am I boring to you? Whatever I'm saying is not enough drama or whatever. But yeah, so you might go through one or two. But I would say, and it's a journey. Everything is not gonna happen like immediate, boom. Like I said in the beginning, my journey to our spirituality was ebbs and flows and things of that nature. So eventually, years of counseling and things of that nature, and of course, continuing questioning, keeping an open mind, to start developing that self-love muscle and things of that nature. I believe spirit, I was able to be more in tune, to my intuition and things of that nature. And it got to the point where I believe spirit always led me in things of that nature and took care of me. But then my eyes just, like, all the scales just kind of came off, at one time. And that's when I had my spiritual awakening. And yeah, I mean, so my point I'm trying to make is I will not, and I encourage other people to not just disqualify therapy, because at the end of the day, is it perfect? No, but it's something that will still work. I will never do that. I mean, it's like telling people, is school perfect? No. Well, just don't go to school, don't I mean, who would do that? I will never tell nobody, oh, just drop out of school. School is no good, because maybe you might want to do something that require that diploma or something, so you can't just do that. It's like, it's not perfect, but like I said, it's not inherently bad. I mean, people still drive cars. Cars have a lot of gas emitting out of it, but people still drive them. Everybody ain't just stopped and start walking. People kind of like, well, I'm driving. If I can, let me ride a bike, electronic bike, motorcycle, whatever, walk, take. Or sometimes people just do other things. Like, okay, maybe I live in a city. I mean, I'm just going off topic. Maybe I live in a city that I have really poor public transportation, and where I live, my job is like miles and miles away, and I can't just walk. I can't just wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and then start walking at 4 to get to work at 8. I'm like, what I'm saying? So maybe I have to drive this car, but maybe I get a hybrid. Some people are against them. I'm kind of scared to get them, but electric car, or I can do other things that can be protective of the planet. That's just an example. Like the people used to say back then, the seasoned ones, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. You don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So will I tell somebody to go out and smoke that powder? That's inherently bad. And I don't think counseling is like smoking smoking that white stuff. So yeah, so basically what I'm saying is, everybody is not gonna just be in a mindset of accepting spirit or having a spiritual awakening right then and there. You don't know how somebody may have their spiritual awakening. You don't know what type of journey they may be on. And part of that journey may be going to counseling and start changing their life, and being more open to, spirit, towards the end. And do I have regrets going to counseling? No, absolutely not. I'm very grateful that I went to counseling, and it hurts my heart when I hear other spiritualists tell people do not go to counseling. It's a waste of money, because a lot of times they never went to counseling themselves, and they don't know what it all entails. Counseling, psychiatry is way deeper than what people perceive it to be, especially if you old school. It's like, not really respected. But honestly, now that we live in the age of Aquarius, it's funny how people are mentioning more than ever the terms narcissism, NPD, psychosis, psychopaths. All those terms came from the realm of psychology. When 10 years ago, maybe, or yeah, I would say around 10 years ago, 12 years ago, nobody wouldn't even mention those words. Back in 2008, I didn't know. I was just now finding out around 2000, I would say 2009, 10, what narcissism was, and that's like 20 years ago. No, that ain't 20 years ago. That was like 10 years ago, so, but anyways, if you listen so far, I thank you. I appreciate you. If you like what I talk about, please hit that like button so I can get more views. I will be more dedicated to post more, to improve my content. Please comment, please share if you have topics that you'd like for me to talk about, whether it's health, spirituality, nature, whatever, put it in your comments. Let me know what you think. about what I spoke about. I'm not saying I'm the end all be all of truth and everything. So just let me know what you think, and if you can relate to this or not. So this is Let's Talk with Kay. Oh, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. So I appreciate you. I welcome new subscribers. I appreciate you. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.